will shape up to be an absolute doozy of a very, very underratedly good finals. I know if you'd spend too much time online, you would see a lot of people complaining, "No one likes small market teams, the
Oh,
NBA
get out of
finals,
here.
nobody wants all the nerd stuff." And it turns out to be one of the best NBA finals in recent memory, which got us both thinking, let's go back in time a little bit. We're not gonna go too far. Like, we may be old, but we're not gonna date ourselves that bad. So we're just gonna stick to this century. Let's look at the top 5. We're gonna give ourselves our top 5 finals of this century. So from 2000 to 2025, we're gonna give our top 5. We're gonna go from 5 to 1. Kelcey, I'm gonna let you go ahead and first. So give us your number 5.
So number 5 is one probably before half of our viewers were alive, or
Hmm.
even could pay attention to basketball, or at least focus on basketball. Um, for me, it is the 2005 Pistons Spurs. I think that series alone kind of really got me involved in basketball, like solidified me in basketball as far as watching it from a fan perspective. You know, Tim Duncan, you had Chauncey Billups, you had this dominant Detroit basketball again, but you had this Spurs run Popovich team that you're just like, this is just post David Robinson situation. So you're not seeing the Admiral down there. You're seeing Tim Duncan, you're seeing Bruce Bowen, you're seeing these guys that half the people that are probably listening are like, who? Trust me, you if you knew, you know. And honestly, it was to me one of those ones that just enthralled and got me involved. 7-game series, Spurs win 4-3. You know, it's hard to look at that and not think like, oh yeah. And then by the way, Tim Duncan just posted double double in the finals, gets the Finals MVP. So for me, that was one of my favorite finals I've ever watched, and that's why it's my number 5.
That's a good one too. And that was a very underrated finals matchup too, because the Pistons were coming off of that championship the year before. So it was like, wow, they're back here. And this was in the middle of a 5 straight Eastern Conference Finals run that the Pistons were on too. And the fact that they were known as a team without, quote unquote, without a superstar. They were better
Yeah.
than the sum of their parts, going against top 7 player all time in Tim Duncan and a top 30 player all time in David Robinson and a top 4 or 5 coach in Greg Popovich. Like,
Yeah.
that's the fact that that was a series is just absolutely incredible how that worked out too.
Let's not forget that is the rise of the Euro step and Manu. Also, one of these games had one team score over 100 in win. That's it. Only one
Mhm.
had one team score over 100. That's how different basketball is today than it was before.
At the end, those 2, you had the 2 best defenses in the league, arguably going head to head on top of it. It was absolutely awesome series. I'm gonna also go back in time. This is gonna be the oldest one on my list as well. I'm going to 2010. We're gonna look at the Lakers taking on the Celtics, a classic matchup that withstands the test of time. The second time they matched up, Kobe versus Paul Pierce, Andrew Bynum, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Ron Meta, Peace, World Artest, everything in between. Derek Fisher, Rajon Rondo. Incredible back and forth series down to game 7. Very low scoring game 7, too. Like, a lot of defense back and forth. We all know everyone likes to say, well, Kobe only shot 9 of 24. He was awful. He shouldn't have even been MVP. They should have given it to Pau Gasol. Meanwhile, they forget about the fact that he had 30 and 38 in the 2 games previously to get to this point. But he chips in 15 rebounds, and the entire NBA Finals comes down to a Ron Meta World Peace Artest 3-point shot with under a minute to go, give or take, to take the finals home for the Lakers. Just I'm gonna use a word that's well be outside of my generation, but the aura of both of those teams colliding. Like, it's a blast from the past, and you have they were the biggest franchises at the time too. They had been in the last 3 finals. The Celtics beat the Lakers 2 years ago. The Lakers had just beat the Magic the year before. It was an incredible matchup. I loved it, honestly. There's just so much behind that one with history, present day, the future, everything that went into it. And it was right before we saw the LeBron era fully kick off too. Like, it was almost like the last one of that era, if that makes sense. So I love that finals.
Yeah, no, that was a good finals. Yeah, I respect that as your number 5. I like that one
So much
for
so.
sure. Yeah, but it's not. I'm not going to put it that low on my list. I'll say that much. It's also not number 4. So yeah, but no, my number 4. You know, you talk about the last one of that era before LeBron really took over. I think my number 4 is the absolute last before LeBron took over. Oh, sorry, got something in my throat here. I'm talking about the 2011
Ooh,
Mavericks
okay.
Heat
And when he
series. So
took under
if anybody gets the cough there, you'll understand why. This is a
2-1.
yeah, the flu series. You know, I'm sick. Don't do that while you're walking down the tunnel when you have an all-time great shooter on the other side.
Not against
That's
Dirk
what we
Nowitzki.
learned. That's what my generation learned watching basketball. Don't do that. Well, LeBron and Dwayne learned real quick and in a hurry that you don't do that. Absolutely dominant performance from Nowitzki despite being sick. 34 points in game 3 was insane. Dwayne Wade by himself was dominant. Nowitzki in game 5 with 29. And then Jason the Jet Terry, everybody forgets about him. Jason the Jet Terry seals it in game 6 with 27 points. And oh, by the way, Nowitzki, number 1 in rebounds that game. So it was a 4-2 series for the Mavericks. Wasn't a 7-game series, but it was still one of the most entertaining because of the flu moment of like, oh, I'm sick. And then immediately lose the rest of the series. Like, guys, what were we doing here?
What I think is very interesting about that series too is everyone likes to use it as the reason to crap on LeBron because of the games 4, 5, and 6 that he had, especially in those fourth quarters. They overlooked the actual greatness of it, which was you mentioned Dwayne Wade was putting on another vintage finals performance throughout this. I think he averaged what was like 28 or something like that. You forget Jason Terry coming off the bench. He was one of the highest scoring bench players in the playoffs, I think in history at the time too. And then of course Dirk Nowitzki go on that epic legendary run from round 1 all the way through the teams he beat, the performance he put on. It felt like every time that super high fade away from the mid post turnaround, it touched the roof and it felt like it was going in every single time. And the clutch moments in that too. He had multiple ones in the fourth quarter when it's close. He drove right by Chris Bosh, who an elite defender at the time too. Maybe not elite, but a very, very good defender at the time.
He was paid for his defense. Like, honestly, Chris Bosh was paid for his defense and his dominant baseline offense. Like, that's what he was paid for.
Like, that's a 20 and 10 all-star. And like that Dirk Nowitzki is getting the better of him. Everyone likes to give LeBron crap for it, but then the underdog story of JJ Barea, like what we saw with TJ McConnell, token small white guy just making plays. That was initially JJ Barea who did it first.
Let's not forget that's the same playoffs run that Andrew Bynum threw the elbow in JJ Barea's chest and set up that 4-0 or 4-0 sweep of the Lakers in that Western Conference, I think semis there.
They went through that. They went through the Lakers trying to three-peat, the Oklahoma City Thunder with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook the year before they went to the finals. And I believe they beat the Spurs also in that run as well. Trailblazers, excuse me. So like talk about a run. And then the Heatles in that finals, like talk about an incredible run. And we know we're not going to focus on the LeBron thing, 'cause that's not really the focus here, but it's not like the entire Heat team collapsed because Bosh was fine as that third option. Wade was still spectacular. So it's not like it was a cakewalk for Dirk. They needed that and everything he had to offer. Like they needed all of it and a bag of chips.
Shane Battier was on that team. Like that team was fully loaded for the Heat.
Like that was
By the way, Rick Carlisle was the head coach of the Mavericks.
Exactly. Like people forget about the actual funness of it. They want to use it to crap on LeBron instead, but they should really. The finals itself was electric. But you said Rick Carlisle, which is a great segue into my number 4. I'm going to rewind roughly a week, and we're going to go with the finals we just witnessed. Pacers and the Thunder. The first game came down to a buzzer beater. The Pacers are down like 16 in the fourth quarter and won on a Halliburton buzzer beater with .03 to go. The Pacers were up 2-1. Very few of the games were complete and utter annihilations. I believe like game 6, obviously the Pacers obliterated them. And I think it was game 4, the Thunder obliterated them. But like all the other games were really, really close. Game 7, like we already mentioned with Halliburton, how he came out guns a-blazing. That game was very nip and tuck until the third quarter when the Pacers turned it over. I think it was 8 times in that quarter alone. And that's when the Thunder did what they do best and absolutely blitzkrieged their way through it. But this was a very, very good and entertaining finals. There was Shea doing his thing. There was also Tyrese, kind of the up and down moments that you get used to with Tyrese because he's such a facilitating guard. Sometimes he almost blends in a little too much. But then when he bursts, it's like, oh my goodness. Pascal Siakam was well on his way to a finals MVP potentially, another outperforming what you normally would expect from him. TJ McConnell, some people you could have made a case going to that game 7. He was on the board for it too. Benedict Mathurin with 27 off the bench doing his Jason the Jet Terry impersonation. I think that was the most points from a 6-man since Jason Terry. Like it was Jalen Williams with his coming out party. Like there was so much incredible back and forth. So much. There wasn't as much quote unquote drama considering there weren't as many huge names, quote unquote, like all the theatric part of it. But just from the basketball standpoint, I'm putting this one at 4 just because a true 7-game series between 2 deep teams is not like I'm sure we'll talk about them later. It's not like when we had LeBron and Steph, we had the clash of titans. This was a clash of armies when you really look at how the teams are built. And That was fun for me. So we're gonna put this most recent one at number 4, and that there might be a touch recency bias, but I think it was a fantastic finals.
I I loved this finals, and I wanted to say shut up to anybody that says small markets don't deserve to be in an NBA finals because you're an idiot.
Go to Indianapolis and tell me it feels small.
Yeah, go to either one of these squads and tell me that their arenas aren't the best, most exciting arenas to be in the NBA. I can't think of 5 better than either of these 2 arenas. There are not 5 better across the league than these 2 stadiums, like these 2 arenas. That's how incredible these fans are. They are fully supportive. They buy into the random Chotsky giveaways, the T-shirt giveaways. They all the way down to the final whistle. There was you would hear in Utah. Now I'm just gonna leave it at that, or Denver. Looking at you, Nuggets fans. You guys are idiots too.
Well, hold on. Let's take it easy with it. Let's take it easy with the hostilities, though, because I have some hostilities to throw around really quickly. As great as Oklahoma City fans are, still not as good if that was the Seattle fans. If that's the Seattle fans, then it would be undisputed. So I'm sorry, Oklahoma City. Consider yourself lucky.
Current NBA teams.
I know. I'm just throwing some shade because that should be the Seattle Supersonics championship, but I digress.
Look, I'm a Kings fan, and I bought Sonics gear when the Kings were about to become the Sonics.
Well, I'd say you might be able to. You might be doing that again.
Or I bought Sonics gear when they
So you might be doing that. You know what? Send the Thunder back to Seattle, and then the Kings can go to Oklahoma City.
Let's not do that. Let's just give Seattle.
You want the Kings to go to Supersonics so they can.
Let's just give Seattle their own team. Anyways.
Well, that's too easy. We clearly can't do that because we didn't do it initially in 2007 and 8. Like whatever. I digress.
We just have to find another. We have to find another city. That's all. That's all we got to do. We got to find another city. I hear Cleveland or Cincinnati could use a basketball team.
Cleveland has a basketball team.
I know Cincinnati.
Okay, I was gonna be like, wait a minute. You know what? Just throw 4 more teams and let's just scatter it out.
There you go. But no, I love this finals, and I just it was too soon for me to put it in here because there's a lot of that I still love.
You know, that's fair. Let's go into your nostalgia glasses. Who do you have at number 3?
Number 3, you just talked about LeBron with my last one. Well, I'm talking about LeBron winning with this one. It is 2013. It is the Spurs Heat. This is the rise of LeBron, if you will, I think is the best way to say it. Also, I think it's the establishment of Kawhi Leonard. Even though he was on the losing side, I think it's worth mentioning that this is what kind of propelled Kawhi Leonard into going and getting that contract. Let's also not forget Mario Chalmers at one point in time in the series was the leading scorer in the series. Danny Green existed. You talked about Chris Bosh led a few games in rebounds. But LeBron, the last 2 games, the closeout games, game 6 and 7. By the way, game 6 went to OT. That's how incredible the series was.
The Ray Allen shot everyone's heard.
Exactly. The corner shot, everybody's seen it. Everybody saw the crowd around the stadium. One of the most insane moments in a series, and that was the closest game of the entire series. Go figure. But LeBron with 32 in that game, 37 in the closeout game 7. Like, that's unheard of in anything. But in a game 7 to go and get 37 against a Kawhi Leonard, who is setting himself as the defensive stalwart of the league at the time, that's a tough break for anybody, a tough matchup. And look, that was kind of LeBron's coming out party, if you will. And as much as he talks about, when Kyrie made the shot in 16, that's when I knew. I was like, this is the one that I think if there's a legacy moment for LeBron, I think this was the series that really established what his legacy could be. And that's like, it's worth mentioning. And by the way, Tim Duncan was still running strong in this series on the other side. But yeah, 4-3 to the Heat. This was one of the most incredible series we had seen until the late 2010s in my eyes. And there's only one other one before it, and there's only one other one after it that I want to put higher. So yeah, this was an amazing series to me.
I don't have too much to add to that one because I'm going to talk a little bit about it myself here in just a moment because I also have it on my list. But an incredible finals, and this was a true clash of titans. I just mentioned a little bit ago, Thunder and the Pacers, not so much this one. Tim Duncan, Dwayne Wade, Tim Duncan, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Kawhi Leonard, Popovich, Eric Spoelstra, like Chris Bosh. It was just Parker. Go down the list. Manu Ginobili's still there. Exactly. Danny Green, as you mentioned, had 30 points in the first 2 games or something like that, like 30 points each, something along those lines. Yep. It was an incredible series. But I'm going to go to my number 3, which I'm going to go a little bit recent here, but not too recent. We're going to go to 2021. We're going to have the Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Phoenix Suns. The reason I'm going with this one is because I think this one had a very interesting set of dramatics when you actually look back on it. So the Suns are up 2-0 because Giannis is coming off that what looked like a devastating knee injury in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Hawks, where it looked like his knee snapped in half. Somehow it was just like a sprained meniscus, I believe was, or a strained MCL. I don't understand. That thing went 90 degrees the wrong way. whatever. Point is, he comes back a little bit slower on. They're down 0-2. We're gonna fast forward. It's now to 2-2 because the Bucks started the comeback. Giannis, let's not forget this is when he could not make free throws at all. Really,
This was
like,
the 10-second year.
this was when the 10-second thing became popular. This was when Suns and 4 was such a popular thing, and it looked like we were about to get that. And then they turned it around as a unit. And that game 5, right down the stretch, 20 seconds or something like that left. Booker's coming down, and this is we forget how good that Suns team was. I mean, Booker, Ayton, CP3. This was CP3's ring, basically. This is what it felt like, is this is him getting the ring finally. Mikal Bridges was there. Like, such a good squad. And then that Drew Holiday steal at that end of game 5, up court, then throws the alley-oop and 1-2 Giannis over Chris Paul to ice the game, to put him up by 4. And then we know that game 6 too. 50-piece from Giannis, had to go and get the Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets afterward, including 16 of 18 from the free throw line. They tried to hack Giannis to try and win that game, and he said absolutely not. When they needed it most, he came through for them in the end on top of it. An incredible overall finals performance, capped off by one of the best individual finals games we've seen from Giannis. So I'm going to put that one at number 3 because forget how the Suns were. Imagine if when the Pacers were up 2-1, everyone was calling Shea a fraud. Imagine if they were up 2-0, like they'd be calling him the things they were saying about Giannis at the time. He had the 2 MVPs and flamed down the playoffs because they just put a wall in front of him. He hadn't been able to beat the wall yet. So on, so forth, etc. And that was just an incredible finals run for me. And that was one of them. Maybe it's a little biased because we did that one on Colorcast. And I just remember it felt like every moment it was so tense when we were calling it through.
Yeah, that was an exciting series. And I do have very warm feelings for that one. I think if that was pure nostalgia based or pure lore based, because also the 50-piece, after you get the 50-piece, that was still one of the greatest post celebration moments. And especially for Giannis, who went on a world tour of things he had never had before, like Kool-Aid, shortly after that, which I still think was one of the funniest summers I've ever seen, as far as like a sports or an athlete providing content to the world. But yeah, I love the color cast moments that we had on there. That was a lot of fun. That was incredible moments for us as a show also. So a lot of nostalgia on that one. But yeah, no, I love the series. It wasn't on my list. I'll be honest. I didn't even think about it when I was making my list. So now I kind of feel like a jerk.
It kind of gets lost because you have Jokic afterwards. You had the LeBron before that. It's unfortunately just kind of stuck because it's like right in the middle of that. What we've seen now with just so much parity.
Yeah, now I'm regretting my list right now. Maybe I should. No, I'm just not. I'm just kidding. But no, I love that as a number 3. My number 2 is the historical rivalry that is etched in the eternity of basketball of the NBA. Celtics Lakers 2010. You had it at number, what did you have? 5, 4? 5. Ugh, that hurts me because this was Kobe Bryant's piece de resistance. He beat the Boston Tea Party. He beat the dominance that was up and coming Rondo. Kendrick Perkins was actually good, not just a talking head that was sucked. But he was actually good at getting rebounds and playing defense.
They did miss him in that game 7. That's right.
They did miss him in game 7. But Pau Gasol, man, everybody wants to be like he was a coattail rider nowadays because they don't understand. But Pau Gasol was one of the best passing, offensive-minded big men to play in the history of the game.
Should have been a top 75. Should have been a top 75.
Should have. Absolutely. And that series, he's out of the 7 games, 4 of the 7 games he led in total rebounds. And then Kobe, by the way, in 6 of the 7 games led in points. Does that surprise anybody knowing the history of the Mamba? Probably not. But these were just insane stat lines. And Ray Allen had 1 game where he's the leading scorer, scoring 32 at the time Ray Allen was trailing off in his career. But that Boston Celtics team was a tough road to overcome, as we saw LeBron not be able to make it. And this is the one we always talked about. This is going to be LeBron versus Kobe, right? But LeBron couldn't get past the Celtics. And then it was Lakers Celtics, and we just had one of the greatest series of all time. 4-3 series, I think, it's hard when you go to game 7 in this matchup to not have a little bit of nostalgia to the series a little bit. That's where I look at it, because this matchup is just all time. Like, there are generations where this was the only matchup they knew in an NBA Finals. And that's crazy.
It's crazy to think about, too. As you mentioned, we had a game 7 in 2010. We had a game 7 in 2013 and a game 7 in 2016 in the finals. Like, we had every 3 years we were getting a game 7. Then we just had to wait 10 years for one. So, you know what? History needs to repeat itself a little bit. Let's get more of these.
Then COVID hit. And then it offset everything.
What a shame.
We might have got canceled because I said the word out loud. I'm sorry, guys.
Moving on. Now we're going to go to my number 2, and it's one that you mentioned earlier in your list, and I'm just like, tisk, tisk, because it also had a Game 7. We're going to that 2013 Spurs and Heat finals because Game 7 came down to a LeBron masterclass in that fourth quarter, in that Game 7, a mid-range jumper to ice the game and put them up by 4. Probably arguably what has been the plague of LeBron's career up until that point was kind of that not wide open 3, like, if they couldn't let you drive, like, we remember Boris Diaw just kind of sitting, Popovich always telling him to back off at that point and
Sitting
just
at the free throw line. Yeah.
basically, yeah, like, just pulling it after the Tim Duncan missed bunny as well. That was the game Chris Bosh gave you 0 points too. Obviously, he was very useful defensively. He did a lot of ancillary parts too, like, but there wasn't a lot to contribute offensively there. Dwayne Wade only had a handful of points. Him and LeBron combined for, I think, 50% of the points. And it was clear it was the LeBron show against that legendary Spurs core. And we already just talked about Game 6. They were dead in the water. The ropes were out. The trophy was on the court. Like, they were ready to go. Like, Adam Silver was all but on the podium. And to get 7 points in like the last 26 seconds or something like that to tie it up, thanks to some missed free throws. LeBron also making the score, I think it was 18 in that fourth quarter. Right before that, rebound by Bosh out to Ray Allen for 3. Oh, what a shot by Allen. Tie game. We all remember that call. Like, we all remember where we were for that. That we mentioned the clash of titans. Those were the quote unquote dynasties at the time, you could say. It was the tail end of the Popovich Spurs. This is their last hurrah. It was the heart of what we thought was going to be the Miami Heat dynasty, which what didn't end up being much of a dynasty. It was just kind of a blip, but it was still during that blip. It was incredible. And that 2013 Heat team, they won, I believe I think that was the year they won 27 games in a row, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been the next year that they did. That was one that a lot of people our age would be like, LeBron that year might have been the best player we've ever seen with our eyes. Because he should have been defensive player of the year. His athleticism was at its peak, arguably. He was 270 pounds playing power forward at the time, too. So he was battling in the post. He was flying up and down. He shot 40%. He was powerful. He was fast. He shot 40% from 3 that year on top of it. And he shot over 80% from the free throw line. There was zero weakness in his game. And capping that off with a mid-range shot like that, that was an incredible final, especially when Danny freaking Green was averaging 30 points through two games of that series and was well on his way to a finals MVP. Like, it wasn't, oh, we have to stop Tim. Oh, we have to contain Tony Parker. It's, how do we keep Danny Green from getting these wide open damn shots? To the point where they put LeBron James on him at one point because they needed to adjust. That was just, and the coaching matchup, which we know now how good Eric Spoelstra is. We didn't know as much at the time because he was younger, but now you see 2 Hall of Fame coaches battling like that. So that was what I had for number 2. I love that series. That was a Game 7 for the ages as well, which we're just going to rip the Band-Aid off with our number 1 because we have the same number 1. Game 7, I'll let you take it away because we both have the exact same one.
Yeah, man. This was, look, we did, 3 years of podcasts with an image behind your head from this game.
It's still over there somewhere.
I'll say, I know it's nearby, but for 3 years we did this show and that image was behind your head because that's how impactful it is. That was the first thing we put up in our apartment when we first became roommates at one point in time. Like, that was the first thing on the wall. You
still haven't said what it is, so you got to get right now. You're putting everybody on edge right now.
2016 NBA Finals. It's the block. The block. I don't have to say what block because if you don't know, go look it up. Just type in the block 2016, and trust me, you're gonna find it within the first 3 posts.
I say he had 3 blocks that game, so you never know. They might randomly give you the wrong one for some reason.
Just a kid from Akron bringing a title back home. Look, that was an incredible series because it looked like the Warriors were washing the series. It looked like it was going to be a gentleman's sweep. For all intents and purposes, it was 3-1. And then LeBron's like, you know what? Nah, let's do this. Him and Kyrie had some of the most impressive moments of that series. And yes, I talked about it earlier. Like, that moment is the moment LeBron has said on, the barbershop thing that he was like, yeah, that was the moment I knew. Nah, he's discounting how good he actually was. This guy was posting triple doubles in Game 7s. And he's doing it, and this is J.R. Smith playing like J.R. Smith, not playing like Henny J.R. Although he definitely probably imbibed a little too much on the Henny afterwards. But this is a moment that you just, not just for basketball, but for, let's say, like a region, I think it was impactful beyond just basketball for how impeccable it was for superstar versus superstar. 2 franchises that you really didn't know what you were going to get out of them, because the Warriors had never been that franchise. They were getting to be that franchise, but they had never been that franchise at that point. This was going to establish their legacy if they won. The Cavs, 52 years of existence to that point, 0 titles. And a LeBron leaving and then coming back. And I think that's part of this as well, is like, you know, you play into all that. It was an incredible series. And look, LeBron stood up as what is LeBron, right? This is what we expect. You talked about 2013, how good LeBron was, how incredibly dominant he was. He took the entire 2013 season and put it into one series. And it really only put it into half of the series, if we're being honest. Because that second half of the series is where he was at his best. And it was like all of a sudden he derailed what everything good was happening for the Warriors single-handedly. And then offensively, Kyrie took the reins, and it was like watching a maestro control it. Like he's a perfect orchestrator of how to make things happen. And LeBron had the mind at the time. You know, he was player coach. Like it was an incredible moment for basketball. And let's not forget, Kevin Love still existed in this. He was knocking down threes, getting rebounds, and this was double still Kevin Love, but he was doing it from the 3-point line.
In that fourth quarter, 1-on-1.
Yeah, it was incredible, man. And I think people don't understand how amazing the basketball has been, especially the last decade. But this 2016 matchup was really one that kind of pitted two different styles too. Built through the draft versus, I hate to say it, but built through free agency.
Built
because
through LeBron. Built through the GM.
You know, LeBron leaves, they get Kyrie. LeBron comes back because of Kyrie. LeBron brings Kevin Love and friends because of that. Like, this is, it was a very built team, and everybody wants to complain about the Warriors being built. The Warriors were drafted. The Cavs were, up to that point, the Warriors were drafted. The Cavs were built through free agency, and you just saw two different styles and how they can clash and make it incredible. And that was, now you see it in the NBA today. You have two different teams. You have teams built through drafting who have two young superstars, maybe three, like we just saw the Thunder. And then you have on the other side, you have teams that are trying to make super teams over and over and over again and seeing what you can get. And like the Lakers right now, and I hate using LeBron as the example here, but the Lakers are a perfect example of that. And it's just, you still see that style. And this really became a thing in 2016. And so beyond just like, even in that series, it has had impact ripples you're still seeing in the game today. And that's what's so incredible about this series to me.
I'll also just throw on a few cherries on top of that one. For the second time in LeBron's career, he was going into the finals against what will soon be a arguable top 10 player of all time. First, he had the Tim Duncan head-to-head matchups, and now you give him the Steph Curry head-to-head matchups. We know how good that team was. Very different styles of play, as you mentioned, where the Cavaliers were a lot of traditional pick and roll, get into isolations, get some mismatches, where the Warriors were just in constant motion like the atoms in a cell. They had no one stopped moving. Steph Curry has the best conditioning of any basketball player ever, and you could see it at that time. That we just saw the graphic a little bit ago. That was the team with the most wins in NBA history. Like they still have, I believe that, or they still have the most wins in a single season in NBA history. And that was the team they overcame. In game 5, him and Kyrie each scored 40. Like the first pair of teammates to do that. Even right now, they're the highest scoring duo in a finals in NBA history. Even with J-Dub and Shea not too far behind, they still set that standard. Incredible finals, the back and forth nature. It had the dramatics and the basketball to go with it. And then what was weird about that finals is so many games were very one-sided. But after they won game 5, you were like, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's just wait a minute. And that's when you kind of thought, if this can get to game 7. And sure enough, when it did, a very weird game, very stagnant for so much of the game. Not so much of the game, for like 4 minutes straight in that fourth quarter with such elite players. Then we got the block, the shot. What would have capped it off is when they had that dish to LeBron driving, he went for the dunk over Draymond but got fouled. If he would have completed that dunk and got the and one over Draymond in that situation, that would have been the greatest poster in a very, very long time. If you'd have been able to complete that one to ice the finals, that would have been incredible. But